Capital Views is co-sponsored and supported by the California Restaurant Association, Capital Weekly, and the California Channel. The California Channel and Capital Views is made possible by the generous support of the California cable industry, bringing public affairs television to California households for over 30 years. Coming to you from the California Restaurant Association headquarters in Sacramento, California. Welcome to Capital Views, a candid discussion on issues that affect Californians. And now your host, Leslie Miyamoto Huffman.
Thank you for joining us on Capital Views. I'm Leslie Miyamoto Huffman. I'm here with Senator Alex Padilla. Thanks for joining us today.
Thank you, Leslie. First time. Hopefully I'll be back.
Yes, absolutely. Open invitation. Great. We'd love to have you. I am interested in learning about your childhood, where you grew up, your family, your education. Can you tell us a little bit about that?
I love those questions.
Okay.
It's not about the budget. It's
right.
not about the economy. Let's see, where do I begin? I grew up in the Los Angeles area, the San Fernando Valley, for the folks who know Southern California a little bit. My folks are immigrants from Mexico, like so many other families in LA right now. But I was born in the Valley, attended public schools, played Little League Baseball, tried to do well in school.
Where'd you go to high school?
San Fernando High School,
okay.
Home of the Mighty Tigers down in the Northeast Valley. A lot of people have seen, if you've ever seen the movie La Bamba, that's where Richie Valens went to school. So
got it.
We kind of proud of that movie because it's a little tour of the neighborhood. Grew up with two siblings, an older sister, a younger brother, and pretty strict parents who always emphasized education. So
right.
When I wasn't playing baseball, I was studying, and when I wasn't studying, I was playing baseball. That's kind of how I grew up. And this life worked out pretty well. I had an opportunity to go to MIT.
I was going to say,
college.
I bet you were studying quite a bit. You were at MIT, you were mechanical engineering major, is that right?
Mechanical engineering, and I mean, growing up, I never imagined where I'd be going to school. I just knew, but folks always emphasized education. In high school, it's a funny story. The first person ever to go from our high school to MIT graduated 2 years before I did.
Okay.
And he was a friend of the family. His sister, my sister were friends, so we kind of knew each other. And he tracked me down one day and he said, Alex, I know you like math, you do well in science, you need to be an engineer, you need to go to MIT.
Wow, that's great.
I hadn't even heard of the
How
school
old were you
at that point. 11th grade.
Oh, okay.
And he just basically harassed me for a week. You got to go to MIT, you need to apply, you need to apply. Now, I had my college selection list pretty set.
And what, yeah, I'd love to know what they were.
Santa Cruz, Santa Barbara, San Diego.
Good schools.
Notice the theme here. Good schools, but close to the beach.
Uh-huh.
Because I love the beach, I love the outdoors. But as I started doing research into MIT, I realized, yeah, I should apply, and if I get in, it'd be a chance of a lifetime. So I did, and an acceptance letter came, and 4 years and 4 cold winters later, I got out of there with a mechanical engineering degree, which looks nice on the wall, because after almost 10 years now of a career in elected office, it's been a long time since I've crunched numbers like that.
Now, did I hear that you played baseball?
I did.
At MIT?
I grew up playing baseball and played my freshman year at MIT. I call this sort of the first big adult decision of my life because I was going to school full time, working at least 25, 30 hours a week because I was only on a partial scholarship, and then playing collegiate sports. So something had to give because I wasn't getting much sleep. And MIT is not exactly the feeder school to the major leagues.
Right.
So
but it's fun.
I stopped playing competitive baseball for a few years and concentrated on work and school.
Did you ever think that you might want to become a professional athlete?
Oh, growing up, that was my dream. And it was in the LA area in the early 80s. It was Fernando Mania, when Fernando Valenzuela was pitching for the Dodgers. So he was the big hero, and that's what we dreamt of growing up. But, I realized that's very unlikely to happen. Still pursued my engineering degree in college and always thought, well, maybe there's a career path related to baseball that can sort of keep me somewhere in the sphere, and other than just being a devoted fan and a partial season ticket holder right
But
now.
now you're a state senator, so how did that all work out?
Oh, that's an interesting story in and of itself. So after having graduated and working at Hughes Aircraft for less than 2 years, I realized...
So you're using that mechanical engineering background?
Yep.
Okay.
But I was driving to work one day, and now granted, this is the aerospace industry in Southern California in the early 90s. That's like working in the dot-com sector after the Y2K bust. So Hughes was consolidating. There was layoffs. There was relocations out of the state, and I was a little low on the seniority totem pole. And I was driving to work one day thinking, 39 hours a week in a lab, 39 hours a week behind a computer. Am I really happy? It's a great career, good pay, important work, but I was still young, and I thought maybe there's something else out there for me, something that's going to get my juices going. And it was during those moments of reflection that I thought of a lot of the community service work I did when I was growing up. Okay. Growing up in a neighborhood like Pacoima, my mom was always very mindful of not just emphasizing education, but keeping us out of trouble. So most weekends I wasn't volunteering, I was volunteered to do something, whether it was graffiti removal or tree planting or volunteering at the church or something. And it was through those early experiences that I developed sort of that warm feeling you get in your heart and in your stomach for working for a day, whether somebody says thank you or not, or somebody acknowledges it or not. The world's a little bit better place for something you did. Mm-hmm. And I thought, well, maybe there's a career out there where I can pay my bills, but do that full time. And after a fellowship program that I did with the Coro Foundation, kind of got recruited into a political campaign and kind of felt, this might be the track, public service, that fulfills the goals of earning a salary, but having a full-time job where I get to help people.
Now, I understand you were a staffer for Senator Feinstein?
Yeah, my first involvement was with an assembly campaign in 1996 for Tony Cardenas, who served 6 years in the assembly and is now in the city council in Los Angeles. Mm-hmm. My first job in government was right after his campaign. I got a call from Senator Feinstein's office. So I worked for her for a year in her Los Angeles office.
In Los Angeles, okay.
Not on the Hill, but not on the campaign. I was in Los Angeles, sort of her liaison to Ventura County, Santa Barbara County, good chunks of Los Angeles County, and depending on the issues or the project, I'd move to different parts of the state. So that was sort of for me, an early opportunity just to jump, with both feet into some pretty big issues.
Right.
I mean, welfare reform under President Clinton was happening at that time, and we were sort of the liaisons between the senator and county officials up and down the state on what this was going to mean for California and specific jurisdictions. That year was a big, bad year for fires. And I remember traveling on her behalf with James Lee Witt, who was the FEMA director at the time, in a Black Hawk helicopter between Malibu and Los Angeles County, parts of Orange County, down into San Diego, to assess impacted areas, not just for quick relief and resources, but what sort of changes in the law and building codes we needed to incorporate to reduce danger in the future.
So at this point in time, were you on board saying, I want to become a senator, or I want to be an elected official, or were you kind of testing the waters and something stuck?
At that time, I was happy doing what I was doing, certainly learning a lot. Again, growing up, having gone to college with an engineering degree, and kind of ending up in this, I thought, well, I can do this for a few years. I'd like to know a little bit more about the process, maybe help some people get elected, but go on to the private sector and go do something else.
Right.
And I certainly did that. From Senator Feinstein's office, I came back to work for the Assembly, worked for Assemblyman Cardenas for a few years. I was a part of a few other political campaigns along the way, one of them being in 1998, Richard Alarcon, who at the time was on the city council, was running for state senate, was the campaign manager. He won. And that created a vacancy on the city council in Los Angeles.
I see.
And it happened to be the district where I was living, happened to be the district where I was born and raised, happened to be the district where a lot of the community work that I had done over the years was centered. And so when the question was who's going to take his place on the city council, all the kind of thinking about it, maybe one day, if, came to fruition, an opportunity to run. And that's when it happened.
Stars were aligned for you.
It lined up. I was pretty young at the time. A lot of people made a big deal of my age. I was 25 when the campaign first started out.
Were you the youngest person to serve on the LA City Council?
Well, when I was elected, I had just turned 26. Okay. And so by a matter of months, it made me the second youngest person in the history of the city to serve on the city council.
And you didn't sit back. I mean, you became president.
Yeah, it's timing is everything. When I was elected in 1999, in 2001, it was the first big impact of local term limits in Los Angeles taking fold. So half of the council that I served with for those first 2 years was forced to retire because of term limits.
I see.
2 years later, it was most of the other half. So in a short time period, I went from being the new person in the council to the senior member. And it was in that transition process where I was elected president of the council. I was trying to serve as sort of a point of continuity and stability for the representation there. And it turned out to be a tremendous experience for me, working with Mayor Reardon at one point, Mayor Jim Hahn at one point, and now Mayor Villaraigosa when he first came into that office.
I understand, and I would assume that it was also quite challenging considering that's when 9/11 happened. Is that right?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, it was July of 2001 that I was elected president of the council, and only a couple of months later, 9/11 happened. And
So what did you learn from that experience? And I would guess mobilizing people and responding very quickly.
Communication,
Yes,
and protocols. What made it a unique experience for me was that, I wasn't the mayor of the city, but the mayor of the city at the time was in Washington when 9/11 happened. And under the city charter, in the absence of the mayor, the council president is the acting mayor.
Got it.
And so I was the mayor actually for the several days after 9/11. And I remember racing downtown, getting briefed in our emergency operations center, trying to communicate with the public about threats or lack of threats and sort of what to do for safety and just so that it wouldn't be a panic breakout.
Sure.
For a few days. You learn a lot about emergency preparedness and planning. Prior to that, you get all the briefings when you're a new elected official, but you try to remember that stuff and you hope it never has to go into practice.
Right.
Well, that day it did. And you have to learn how to sort of trust the experts,
Right.
that they know what they're doing.
Did you ever, even now, do you think I could have done things differently? Or would you have done?
A little bit, but I think we did a pretty good job sort of letting the police chief and the fire chief and the emergency folks sort of do their thing. One of the things that was very helpful for me, and I've tried to continue to do this throughout my career, I'm constantly networking, meeting mayors, council members, legislators, members of Congress from different parts of the country. And one of the people who had become a very good friend of mine at that point was the mayor of San Antonio. Now, San Antonio wasn't a target during 9/11, but most major cities in America were bracing for a potential
Sure,
threat.
right.
And we were texting each other, even back then. He was a relatively new mayor. I was acting mayor in LA. Hey, what are the feds telling you? This is what they're telling me. Here's how we're handling our airport shutdown and trying to reopen airspace and all these things. And so we were able to sort of comfort each other a little bit, that we weren't alone in all this, but also compare notes and suggestions. So I think it made me a better servant during those days, and I hope I helped him in his capacity.
Great. All right, we'll be right back. More with Senator Alex Padilla. Thank you for joining us on Capitol Views. I'm Leslie Miyamoto Huffman. I'm here with Senator Alex Padilla. We're going to pick up on the conversation we were having. I am interested in social networking. I noticed you had a YouTube page or a YouTube channel.
Right.
Talk to me about, you're a young legislator. Talk to me about why you thought that would be a great opportunity, I guess, to meet or talk with your constituents.
Well, some of the things that have occurred years ago are finally starting to make sense to me.
Okay.
I talked to you about my first election to the city council back in 1999, and I remember within 2 weeks I was named chair of the Information Technology Committee. And at that, I'm here 2 weeks, how am I going to chair a committee already? And I think what most people said, well, you went to MIT, you must understand this technology stuff, go make it work. And there's some things back then, like updating the city's webpage and getting it more sort of a two-way, a little bit more transactional versus just posting information that people can read online. We were webcasting our council meetings and a few things like that in my first couple of years. Technology is evolving at a pretty tremendous pace. And unfortunately, in government or even politics, we don't keep up with the pace of technology that most people are used to. I mean, if I have a problem with my credit card bill, I can call somebody 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, or I can go online for whatever store I'm doing, either shop online or you can do so much. And people are getting used to that in their daily lives. How it applies to government and politics is no different, yet government and politicians have not kept up as much. We saw a tremendous breakthrough, I think, with how President Obama was elected. I mean, that was the first campaign on that scale that truly embraced technology and not just sort of social networking, but sort of online organizing, if you will. And so we're trying to embrace certain elements of that too in my communications, with my own constituents. So we have an electronic newsletter that goes out that saves paper, but we can reach a lot of people much more quickly. And between putting press releases online and those sorts of things, more and more people are going to the internet for video content as opposed to watching the 6 o'clock news. So yeah, we've debuted an Alex Padilla channel on YouTube, and we're putting more and more content there. But it's one of the many tools that we use to communicate both with my constituents in my district and anybody else who wants to follow along.
And do you have colleagues that are coming in, knocking on your door saying, hey, Senator, how's that YouTube channel working for you? Or are you tweeting? And, are you using Facebook and all of those other tools that are out there?
Yeah, a couple of colleagues have approached me and said, hey, my staff just noticed this on your webpage. How can we do this, or how's it working out? And frankly, we're not afraid to copy others too or follow other people's leads. So we look at other people's websites, both other members of the legislature, but also folks in other parts of the country. Senator Rodney Ellis out of Texas is pretty good at this stuff too. So, I've been texting and emailing for a long time. We have a pretty good web page, I think. Sort of skipping the Facebook thing a little bit. We have a Facebook website, but I'll be honest. I mean, we're so busy during the course of the day in the Capitol. It's rare that I stop, take a deep breath, and think, walking to committee. So for all my friends to follow.
Yeah.
So maybe I'm going to leapfrog into the Twitter space just because that's a little bit easier, a little bit quicker to do. But it certainly is fun.
Just voted no. just voted yes on blah, blah, blah.
Why. So we're hoping to buy one of the new digital video cameras for the office. And, not for every single vote that I cast in committee or on the floor, but for the big issues that I know people are really watching closely.
Do you think that
be
it's
able to explain why I'm doing what I'm doing and put it up and educate the public.
Is it involving, are you getting younger voters engaged in the process because of this, do you think?
I think it is based on sort of some of the responses or messages back into the office that we get. I also know I'm catching up with a lot of people that I knew in high school or college that I've lost contact with, so everybody's looking for everybody out there.
Yeah, it's amazing how fast that technology is changing. I mean, the whole Twitter and Facebook. But I wanted to ask you about, the presidential election, voter turnout was very, very high. The special election, very low. Do you have any magical equation, or do you have any solutions to how we can get younger kids, younger voters to the polls?
Involved.
Yeah.
I think it begins with reaching out to them. I mean, and having something that they can get excited about participating in. Obviously, when Barack Obama was on the ballot, both in the primary as well as in November, it motivated a lot of people to get involved that were either never involved before or just rarely involved. This last special election that people point to just a miserable turnout, I mean, who's excited about coming to vote for ballot measures that maybe they made sense, maybe they didn't make sense? Regardless of that, it's, I think, a civic responsibility to participate on election day. But it's also a responsibility amongst elected officials to reach out to our constituents. And that's something that I try to do in various ways, shapes, and forms.
How do you do that?
If you look at campaigns and how they've evolved, they've gone from sort of the door-to-door campaigning, that all the grassroots stuff that I was brought up doing, to, we're just going to put TV ads out there and maybe mail brochures into people's mailboxes. But again, understanding how technology and society is changing, that's not how everybody gets their information anymore, particularly young people. So we utilize technology, but even President Obama's campaign directors will say all the YouTubing, all the Twittering, all the Facebooking in the world is no substitute for a knock on the door.
That personal communication.
And too much of, I think, our political process has gone away from the face-to-face contact. So whether it's, coffee parties in people's living rooms or backyards, or one of my favorite things to do, even when I'm not on the ballot, is to go door to door in my district and just talk to people. It's tremendously valuable to me because I get the direct feedback of what people are thinking, what they're feeling, what's important in my district. And I'd like to believe that when I walk away from the door, people say, well, hey, if it was important enough for him to come knock on my door and have this conversation, then it's important enough for me to get to the polling place on Election Day.
Right, that's great. So I'd love to hear about your political future. I've heard that, it's very likely you will be one day be the mayor of LA.
Wow. I don't know. I'm a big believer in do a good job now, and opportunities will present themselves. We talked earlier about my upbringing and my background, from just a kid playing Little League Baseball in LA to going to MIT for an engineering degree. I never really grew up dreaming that I'd be in elected office or be president of the United States one day. That being said, I love my job. I get to help people, and the challenges of either filling potholes or tackling healthcare and everything in between, I find tremendously challenging. It's 2009. I'm up for re-election in the state senate next year. So I have hopefully be in a term of 2010 to 2014. What comes next, I really don't know. I love the city of Los Angeles, and I love the state of California, and I'd love to maybe end up in Washington, D.C. someday. Really? So there's no sort of set path, I think, especially in the era of term limits. Opportunities open and close all the time. So I got a couple of years to figure out what's next.
Okay, well, we will certainly be watching. I also hear you are an avid sportsman. You love baseball, you love golf. What other things do we need to know about you that you're passionate about?
I grew up playing baseball, but over the years I've played all sports, from basketball, football, volleyball. I play golf now. I enjoy staying active, and I particularly enjoy the outdoors. So if it's a day at the beach in the summer, or I try to get hiking at least once a month if I can, depending on where I am. Just, something to clear my head from the pressures and the process of what I do for a living during the week. It's healthy.
Yeah, it is, and I did want to touch on that. I mean, what has been the hardest part about being an elected official?
Probably time management. There's so much need in what we do, and the budget challenges and constraints make it even that much tougher. I can work literally 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, and still not finish everything I would like to finish. There's always something more. So it's important to have a balance in our life,
right?
Both for us as individuals, for our physical health, our mental health, for family time,
right?
Those sorts of things. I enjoy reading when I can. I enjoy traveling when I can, and I think just clearing my mind and thinking of different things actually helps my thought process and decision making when I do come back to my job.
Have you been on any great trips lately?
I've been on a few fabulous trips. I promised myself after 9/11, we talked about 9/11 earlier, and all the geopolitical, what did that mean of 9/11 led me to make a pact with myself to leave the country once a year.
I like it.
And so since 9/11, I've had a chance to go to China, Japan, Costa Rica, Argentina, Israel, Sweden, Canada.
Favorite place?
I'd have to say Israel. I mean, a lot of people, when they think Israel, they just think of the violence and the tensions of the Middle East, and certainly that's part of the reality. But if you stop and appreciate the religious center that it is for multiple religions, of the major religions around the world, just the history, the politics of the place, all sort of combined into one small geographic area. Plus, what I really appreciated when I was there is just the natural resource of what's there. It's not a big country. I mean, they have the same issues that we do here. Transportation infrastructure for a country that's been around only about 60 years. What are their sources of water? Because if you recall the stories of the Bible, it's desert. The potential for violence and conflict in all the surrounding countries. You try to just put all those different issues and dynamics together into one small space, and it makes for a pretty exciting environment to be in. But I'll tell you, it was the safest place I've felt, and I've been all over the world.
Oh, that's interesting.
Because I think there's so much attention to the potential for violence or something happening that security measures, pretty much anywhere you go, are pretty tight.
Has it helped shape how you make decisions as a senator?
A little bit, but even before I went, all my friends asked, even my family asked, "Are you sure? Is it safe to go? Is it safe to go?" And I mean, for my mom, it was one of those like, "Oh my God, you're my son. You're going to go to this." I finally showed her the itinerary of some of the biblical sites we were going to visit in between the security briefings and the tours and this and that, and all of a sudden the trip took on a whole different meaning for her. So it touched me in a special way in that sense. But yes, again, every time we can sort of take ourselves out of our shoes here and look at things from other people's perspective, you know, when we talk about water issues here in California, or transportation, or education, or, you know, diversity issues. That's another thing about Israel. It's a very, very diverse population. As challenging as it is for them, you know, it puts our issues in a little bit different context, and I think a little bit different appreciation as we try to tackle them.
Before we go,
Yes.
I want to have a little fun. I want to do a little quick fire with you.
Okay.
And throw out a couple topics and get your reaction.
So get a lifeline?
Yeah, you phone a friend. So the first little topic is Arnold Schwarzenegger.
Yes.
Tell me, what do you think? What comes to mind? What's the first
Arnold's like a box of chocolates.
thing? Oh,
You never know what you're going to get. It's actually been great working while Arnold is governor here in the Capitol. There's a lot of times that people, you know, he's under the gun in a lot of people's perspectives, including me. But I've been genuinely impressed on some of the stances that he's taken as a Republican, whether it's his reversal on the BLF, the stem cell research that he's decided to support, you know, things like that, that I absolutely respect.
okay. Next one, San Francisco Giants.
You don't want me to go there. Look, I don't hate the Giants. I'm a true blue Dodger fan, but I will give it to San Francisco. AT&T Park is a beautiful place.
Okay.
And yeah, those garlic fries, pretty good. Garlic fries and a Dodger dog, what a wonderful combination.
Sounds good. Favorite restaurant?
Where? LA, Sacramento?
Both.
LA, downtown, Ciudad Restaurant on Figueroa and 5th.
Okay. What makes it so fabulous?
It's not just Mexican food from all different parts of Latin America, but it's sort of a modern gourmet fusion kind of place. The dessert, tres leches cake, to die for.
Okay. Sacramento, best restaurant.
Sacramento, I got to go with the neighborhood joint, 33rd Street Bistro. I live in East Sacramento while I'm up here, and it's both walking distance, ever-changing wine list, and the kitchen's open an hour later than most of the restaurants downtown.
All right. I'm hungry. Thank you. Thank you, Senator Alex Padilla.
My pleasure. Hope to be back soon.
All right. Thanks for watching Capitol Views. We'll see you next time.